Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming to our first Remembrance service of the year. The ringing of the kansho signifies the start of the service. Please sit quietly.
Vandana Ti-Sarana. Let's tell everybody to join in both the Pali and the English. Okay.
Please rise for the meditation, followed by the chanting of the Vandana and Ti-Sarana by the whole congregation, and you also chant both parts, okay? Please be seated. Today's remembrance. We will now have the remembrance of those who passed away this month in any year, individuals and pets. Reverend Sumikawa will hit the gong or daking several times to start this portion of the service. Then the names of the deceased will be called. Please go forward to just offer incense. Then he will hit the gong again for the next name. After the last name is called and incense offered, Reverend Sumikawa will hit the gong several times. He will then go directly to the Sutra for the day 12 Homages or Junirai, found on page 120 in the red Jodo Shinshu service book. Amy Oyadomari, Otajiri Asada. Roy Goya. Flora Inaba, Terry Hisashi Oishi. Yukie Uno. And Sharon Kukino. Page 120.
In Buddha's wondrous pure land, bodhisattvas gather round, golden form like the mountain king, steadfast like the elephant's space, Buddha beyond compare, Amida's pure virtue shining clear like space, all benefit from Buddha. Thus I bow to Amida, Bodhisattvas all renowned, marvelous to praise Amida, primal vow made for our sake. Thus I bow to Amida, golden paths where lotus bloom, towers a throne of goodness. Buddha lives like the mountain king. Thus I bow to Amida, Bodhisattvas come afar, attaining true happiness. They revere the Buddha's face. Thus I bow to Amida. All life changes like the dew. We have no permanent self. Buddha teaches this law to all. Thus I bow to Amida. No evil in the pure land, and no fear of evil paths. Faithful hearts honor Buddha. Thus I bow to Amida, saving us through many ways. No tempters, no evil friends. Birth leads to enlightenment. Thus I bow to Amida. Amida, thus I have praised. Virtues boundless like the sea. These virtues shared with others, for birth into the pure land. Nama,
Will you please all rise and turn to page 6 in the same red book, page 6. Entrusting in the vow of the Buddha and reciting the sacred name, I shall proceed through the journey of life with strength and joy, revering the light of the Buddha
and reflecting upon my imperfect self, I shall strive to live a life of gratitude. Following the teachings of the Buddha and discerning the right path, I shall spread the true Dharma. Rejoicing in the compassion of the Buddha, respecting and aiding others, I shall do my best to work for the welfare of society. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda.
Please continue to stand for the Gatha, Quest of Life, found on page 126 in the brown Praises of the Buddha book. Page 126. Seated. This morning for our Dharma talk for this Remembrance service is our own Reverend Sumikawa.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's good to see all of you again this morning. You know, last week we were treated to a very, very nice Gatha message that only a Reverend Kyohara can deliver. He was quite entertaining at that, but I'm not to be undone. So, put my glasses on and I can see you better now. I'd rather have that than these little puppets that some people have, you know? Anyway. Please join me by putting your hands together in Gassho. The wondrous land, vast beyond measurement, is made up of adornments fulfilled through the primal vow. So bow down to and take refuge in Amida, the pure one who broadly grasps all beings. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda. This morning, as we welcome new visitors and attendees to our morning services, I thought maybe it'd be a good time to go over and review for some of you a bit about chanting and rituals and what it's all about. We chant sutras, translated from the Sanskrit literally as threads. And there are poems, songs, or hymns that are found in the sutras. In the Chinese translations, they have a set number of characters per line and a set meter when chanted. An example would be the one that we usually chant, such as Sambutsuge or Junirai or Jusei, both in Sino-Japanese and in English, and also Gassho to Amida, which is a modern-day sutra. Gathas, or they're called kada in Japanese, are composed pieces with a set melody, like the Sambujo that we sometimes chant in more formal services like the one we did last Sunday, as it was Ho'onko service, a memorial service held in honor of the founder of the Pure Land sect, Shinran Shonin. His depiction and is seen on the right-hand side of the altar as you face it. Sambujo was a short introductory piece. It's used at the beginning of many services, as I mentioned. It was written by one of the patriarchs of the Honganji, Zendo, or Shantao in Chinese, the fifth patriarch of Shin Buddhism. Originally, it was meant to invite the presence of Amida Buddha and Shakyamuni Buddha and all the Buddhas of the 10 directions. But in Jodo Shinshu, it is meant to acknowledge their presence, because they are always here. We don't call them into the temple to visit us. They're always here with us. So, you know, there's 7 patriarchs, right, in Shin Buddhism. 2 from India, 3 from China, and 2 from Japan. So chanting is both a discipline and a meditation also. More than 2,500 years ago, the Buddha's disciple chanted in unison the lessons that they learned from their master. You know, in those days, writing was not universal. So voicing the Dharma was a convenient method of preserving and propagating the teachings. Throughout the years, this tradition was handed down from one generation to another in all Buddhist countries in many languages. Chanting the words of Shakyamuni Buddha, of Nagarjuna, the first of the 7 masters in the development of Jodo Shinshu tradition, or that of Shinran Shonin, does honor and praise their virtues, as well as help internalize the meaning of the words. So now let's briefly discuss some of the more commonly chanted sutras in our Sunday services. First one we do every Sunday is Vandana Ti-Sarana. The beginning of the service is usually chanted, and it's an ancient chant that is found in the Dhammapada. A Dhammapada is a book about this thick, and it's a collection of the teachings of the Buddha. Sambutsuge, or praises of the Buddha, we chant sometimes in Sino-Japanese and sometimes in English, taken from the larger sutra, and it praises the voice of Bodhisattva Dhammakara to the Buddha, Lokasvara Raja. So Dhammakara, in his desire to attain Buddhahood and his heartfelt determination to accomplish his goal for the sake of saving all sentient beings to become the Amida Buddha. That was his aspiration of the Bodhisattva Dhammakara. The other one is Jusei. The verses reaffirming the vows is also taken from the larger sutra. The 3 sacred vows that were made by when Amida Buddha was still yet a bodhisattva. And they are: number 1, to establish the most incomparable vow to the world. Number 2, to become the great provider and save the poor and suffering. And the third vow is to attain Buddhahood and have his name heard throughout the 10 quarters of the universe. Now, another Sutra is Junirai, or this morning we chanted in English the 12 hymns of worship written by Nagarjuna. This verse praises Amida Buddha, praises the beauty of and sacredness of the Pure Land, and expresses a desire to be born there. One other one, Shoshin Ye, or the Hymn of True Faith, written by Shinran Shonin, is a sutra that we chanted at Hoonko this past couple of weeks ago. It encapsulates the teaching of Jodo Shinshu, joyfully stating that his faith was granted by the power of Amida's primal vow. Shinran then encourages all to entrust themselves to Amida Buddha. He praises the 7 spiritual masters of Jodo Shinshu who showed us the way to salvation through Amida Buddha. The other one, Wasang, or Psalms, written by Shinran Shonin in Japanese. The Shoshin-ge was also written by Shinran, as I mentioned, but it was written in Chinese, the typical Chinese called kambung, whereas the Wasang was meant to be sung by the people that attended the services, and this was written in Japanese. So the Wasangs are chanted after the Shoshin-ge. And we don't do it at Sunday service because people will fall asleep. It takes too long. So we can do it Monday evenings. If you come to my meditation service, we'll do the Wasang. So these psalms were written in praise of Amida Buddha, in praise of the Pure Land and the 7 masters. Gassho to Amida. We chant that once in a while, don't we? And it was written by a minister on the BCA, Reverend Tsuji, for Dharma school children in the hope that they will understand the meaning of the words. But once when I visited Makawao Hongaji, this is many years ago, instead of Gassho to Amida, they said Gassho with Amida. And I think it makes more sense when we chant Gassho with Amida and not to Amida. So hereafter, whenever we chant this, I'm going to have a printed handout with the words Gassho with Amida. So we do chanting together in a service where everyone is gathered together with both the adults and children. And this forms a sense of intimate connectedness with each other, doesn't it? It is said that when we share the same experience of chanting with one another, we then develop a trusting and caring attitude toward each other, and ultimately to the world itself. We then become more capable of realizing the caring that we ourselves receive in our daily lives. If you recall one of the past Dharma talks about a sailor who fell overboard the ship and was fighting the ocean currents until he realized that all he had to do was to let go of the current itself, and the current itself would take him to the shore, calmer and safer waters. Well, chanting is a sound of awakening to the fundamental oneness of all things. Shinran Shonin says to take refuge in the pure music. Each person that chants becomes pure sound, his or her own sound, like no other. When each voice is true to itself, it chants out loud with no embarrassing, without calculation. So you should not feel embarrassed about chanting out loud. Each individual sound adds layer upon layer to the total sound, a sound that is uniquely Buddhist. Here then, the only bad voice is a voice that is attempting to imitate another. Shonin says that we should listen to the sound that is important and not the meaning of the words. We can study the meaning of the words later in a class or at home. But let us not get caught up on the words, but what the message is that they convey. A chanting that is done in Kambung or Chinese, although for the most part is unintelligible for us Westerners, it is unintelligible for even the Japanese in Japan. It is pure music. We need both the chanting of the pure music and the studying of the English translations of the sutras for the intellectual meaning and for understanding. But sometimes our ego makes us control freaks in that we need to want to understand things from a point of view in our own way, in our own time, and in circumstances that are under our control. Chanting is learning to join the flow, not control it. And in that flow, there is nothing to do but to enjoy it. The sound of the chanting is quite enjoyable. What about the rituals? A certain minister from the Tri-State Buddhist Church in Denver by the name of Reverend Okamoto once offered a definition for ritual. He said that ritual is something that you do when there is nothing else to do. If this is taken at face value, then one might think that it meant that rituals are just a waste of time, or useless actions, or mindless activity that doesn't involve us in a meaningful way. The achievement of mindfulness is the goal of all Buddhists. Being aware of where you are and what you're doing at all times. But if you do not involve yourself in mindfulness, a ritual then becomes an empty gesture. The rituals that we are most familiar with are the ones that we perform here at our Sunday services, and each of them involves the three most important forms of karma, or action, that we are always putting out, are those of mind, word, and deed. Let's start with the very first thing we do or should do when we enter the temple, which is the bow, acknowledgement, reverence. We have inherited these three forms of the bow in paying reverence to the Buddha. But before the bow, there is a way of entering the temple. I should watch if you want to enter the temple. But before even the bow, as I said, there is a way of entering. So one enters the temple by stepping in with the left foot, followed by the right. The left foot represents the world of samsara, or the world that we live in, the world of defilement. Symbolically saying that I come from the world of samsara, or dis-ease in the world. When one exits the temple, we step out with the right foot, which represents the world of nirvana, symbolically saying that I come from the world of nirvana. A simple act such as this, though, we must be mindful of what we are doing. The most formal type of bowing is a so-called 5 parts cast to the ground. 5 parts cast to the ground. This is done by monks and nuns, so you don't have to worry about it, in monastic schools. And this is performed by going down on your knees, and then your elbows, and then touching the forehead to the ground. Now, we did this once during ordination, when we received the rites from the Monshu at the head temple. We didn't bow like this to the Monshu, but to the Buddha, actually. If you look at the Uchishiki on the Butsudan, you will see that the cloth is triangular in shape. This cloth represents the mat that the Buddha sat on when he was preaching. At that time he was preaching, it was merely a straw mat. But as generations and years go by, it becomes more and more elaborate like this. So now this costs about $2,000. The second bow is the so-called tall kneeling bow. Tall kneeling bow. This is one where one goes down on both knees. The thighs and body remain erect with the hands in Gassho. This is most often done by the Jodo Shinshu priest in the most formal occasions, situations. The third bow, the most commonly used bow when entering and leaving the temple and an offering of incense. There are two aspects to this. As I said, in entering and leaving the temple, we do the yuhai type of bow. Yuhai meaning you just bow from the waist down to about 15 degrees, that's all. You don't bow way down. And in offering incense, then we do two types, right? The yuhai and the raihai. Let me explain. Most of you know how to do this. As you approach the incense burner, when you're a few feet from the incense burner, you do a short bow, the yuhai, 15 degrees. And then you take a couple of steps towards the incense burner. You pick up the granules, you put it into the burner, put your hands together in Gassho, say Namo Amitabha. So at this time, you make a 45-degree bow, a deep bow. Straighten up, take a step backwards, and make another short bow, and then go back to your seat. So, this is the Jodo Shinshu method of offering incense. So the Gathas, the Sutras, and the Dharma talks are all done in praise of Amida Buddha. Earlier I mentioned that Reverend Okamoto said that ritual is something you do when there is nothing else you can do. It is because everything has already been done for us through the 48 vows. Our enlightenment has been accomplished. There is nothing else that we can do as far as our enlightenment is concerned but to express our deep gratitude in song, chanting, rituals, and recitations. So what he said was actually right, that ritual is something that you do when there is nothing else to do. Thank you all for listening, and now please join me once again by putting your hands together in reverence. The delicate, wondrous sounds of jewel trees in the jewel forests that produce the sound of Dharma are a naturally pure and harmonious music, unexcelled in subtlety and elegance. So take refuge in Amida, the music of purity. Namo Amida-butsu. Namo Amida-butsu. Namanda. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Reverend Sumikawa. There are things that I learned today I didn't realize about the bowing when entering.
Come back in again correctly.
So now I know I have to step in correctly before I come into the temple, as I'm coming into the temple. How many of you knew that? Anybody who knew that? Okay, so then we're all going to watch each other right while we come into the temple.
From now on, you stand by the door and you can correct everyone.
I guess Reverend will be doing that. He'll be watching us when we enter the temple. Would you please rise for the Gatha, hands together in Gassho, which is found in the back section of the book, of the brown book. Okay, it's a sheet of paper pasted in. Hands together in Gassho. In the back, there's a page that we've added in. continue to stand for the Nembutsu. Please be seated. We'll call our President Prudence for announcements.
Good morning. Nice to see you. And welcome to Andrew and Amanda Murphy Ishikawa. They're seated right here. So when you see them after the meeting service, please say hello to them. Because I didn't have much of a chance to find out how you found us and everything else, but we always wanted to know that. Okay, I just have one announcement, and that is that, you know, as members of Windward Buddhist Temple, we are also automatically become members of the Hompa Honganji Mission of Hawaii. And as most organizations, they have an annual membership meeting, and it's going to be on February 11. It starts at 11:15 by Zoom, and it's in conjunction with our 110th Legislative Assembly. So I have I think the minutes there, and the agenda will be posted. So it doesn't mean you have to attend, but it's just that we have to post this and let you know in case you want to attend. Some of us are going to the Legislative Assembly, so we will probably be there on Friday and Saturday. So any other announcements? Otherwise, this concludes our service, and we have takeaway refreshment bags in case you don't want to hang around and socialize. But if you want to, there are seats there, so please help yourself. Thank you.